Is the light okay?
हाँ जी, अब ठीक है. So with me today is Waheed Khan, very well known in Pakistan, a senior man in sports broadcasting and sports journalism. It's great to have a person of his seniority with us today. So thank you, Waheed, for coming on today. We'll get on to the questions. We'll start by talking about your profession and your journalism and broadcasting. Um, how is the current situation affecting you in terms of no live sport to cover? I guess you have to be creative and you have to find other ways of entertaining your audience. And you've also got time now to interview and do lots of these type of activities during this pandemic. How is it affecting you and your colleagues in Pakistan in the sports journalism industry?
Right, Abdullah, thanks a lot for inviting me to the show. Yes, it has affected us a lot. The media has been affected a lot because of this coronavirus pandemic. And one thing is that we are lucky and fortunate in the sense that because mostly I host shows or I work for some foreign agencies and all via services. So I've been working out of home, and thanks to these services like Skype and Zoom and all these things, they have made life a bit easier. And I've been able to work using this technology, doing remote shows and all this sort of stuff. So it's been difficult. Obviously, I mean, if you're not able to move out of your house freely and you're, I mean, restrained if you're working out from your home because there are some limitations there. And obviously, if you go to the office and work from the studio, it makes a huge difference. But I guess we have to just manage. And like I also have my own YouTube channel, so that's not been a problem at all. In fact, the one positive thing out of this, the one silver lining of this situation is that I've been able to focus on my social media work a lot, especially my YouTube channel, and mashallah, it's been doing well. So, like, it's been good, but obviously, would love to get back to normal life and all those things that we used to do. But for the time being, I think we need to be more careful and keep on taking the necessary precautions because the situation is still pretty fluid as far as this pandemic is concerned.
Recently, in recent years, we've seen Pakistan team coming to England regularly, almost every summer, for either an event or a series. And I see your colleagues here, Mirza Iqbal Beg, Majid Bhatti, um, several
A
others,
lot of
Shahid
Hashmi,
Shahid
Shapoor, and all these guys.
um, and but I never see you come to England. How come? How come that's the case? I don't see
That's
you.
because, Abdullah, I was with there's a major national English daily here, the News, which belongs to the Jan Group. So, like, I was working with them as a senior cricket correspondent I worked for nearly 15 years for them. So, like, I traveled regularly from 91 up to 2006. And then I switched over to Reuters, and then I switched to television. So when I came into television, I switched from reporting to hosting shows. And because I host shows, so obviously whenever we have major events or series, I'm bound to do the shows from the studio. That's one of the main reasons that I can't move out of Pakistan at all. So that's a pretty big letdown for me because I've spent most of my journalistic career, reporting stuff and touring countries and covering events. I've covered the Olympics, the World Cups, and all those major events. So it's made a big difference. But I guess in TV, you get paid very well and all that sort of stuff. But one of the downsides is that if you're hosting a show, then obviously your first priority is to focus on the show. And then if you're focusing on a show, then you have to do it from a studio. In Pakistan, fortunately, until now, our media channels, a number of dozens of channels in Pakistan right now who do mostly Urdu languages or regional languages. Unfortunately, sports is not a priority for them. Cricket is a gets coverage, but even cricket doesn't get that sort of coverage in the sense that they just like I work for this GTV news channel. This is one of the few channels that does a sports show 4 times a week, which I host from Monday to Thursday. Otherwise, there's just PTV Sports and Geo Super. And which focuses sports. But unfortunately, the situation in Pakistan for the media has been that they don't seem to have the funds, to spend on sending reporters abroad or their anchors abroad. Like if you take the example of our neighboring country, India. India obviously has a bigger market than us, a much more developed media sector there. So in India, you can see that their anchors, hosts, reporters, they're all moving out with the team. They're covering events, going on tours because they have that financial backing, they have that viewership, they have the sponsorship. In Pakistan, that's not the case. So we are pretty, restricted. If you decide once to come into television and do hosting, then you have to then sacrifice one part of your career, and that is then you can't move out of your city to uh, I would say not city, but out of your country to report on events and that sort of stuff. At times, it's pretty frustrating because if you spend 15 years, traveling a lot and covering all the major events, it gets a bit frustrating at times. But then I guess one has to balance these things.
And looking ahead to the forthcoming tour of England, what's the situation among the Pakistan journalists, reporters, correspondents? Will they be coming? Because there is news that they'll be limiting the number of places in the press box in the biosecure environment. They'll only perhaps have 10 people allowed in the press box. So, do you think what's the talk around Pakistan journalists and correspondents
Uh,
wishing to?
uh, uh, I think a few will definitely come representing the big channels and big newspapers because this is a very important tool. And but you're right because of this biosecurity environment and the SOPs that have to be followed. It won't be this. It won't be the same as in the past. So, but definitely we'll have a few of our guys there. I'm sure of that because tours to England are always important, and this one particularly is very important because I think this series will also define how international cricket is played from now on. Because let's not forget, Abdullah, that this coronavirus thing is going to, the way things are going, it appears as if it's going to stay with us for a while now. So if normal life has to resume or semi-normal life has to resume, we have to get used to these things. And if cricket is to be played like other sports, then we have to find ways to do it safely. So yes, a few of our guys will definitely be there, but you won't see the same numbers that you see normally. One important aspect is that I'm not sure if the Pakistan Cricket Board or England Cricket Board have so far, taken a final call on this tour because West Indies is due to play in England next month. So Pakistan's tour will also depend a lot on how the West Indies series goes. The Pakistan Cricket Board has said that very clearly. They have said that if any player wants to withdraw from the tour, they can withdraw from the tour. They won't force any player. But I don't see that happening because I don't see any Pakistani player, sacrificing his place in the team for these reasons, particularly. But there's one very important question that is, like rankling that's at the back of our mind, which no one has answered as yet, and that is that if you start playing cricket even in front of empty stadiums with the proper SOPs, and you get the players out after quarantine and all this sort of stuff. But this virus has got such a strange nature that it's you can catch it just touching a railing or just touching the ground or a cloth or a plastic or a newspaper. It's that infectious. So what I was thinking, what the question at the back of my mind, which these guys need to answer, is that what happens if any player during a match displays symptoms, then how do you go about it? Okay, you have 25, 35 players there. You can get a replacement. But then what happens? Because if you recall when the Pakistan Super League was being held, at that time, as soon as this news came through that Hales had showed symptoms, he had returned back home during the tournament. They had to stop the tournament immediately, and then they had everyone tested. So this is a very key question that what do you do in such a situation? So it's not going to be easy, but I guess people are right that at some stage one has to move forward, and let's see how they do it.
In your shows, who's your favorite guest or the one that you bond the best with? I'm thinking that whenever you do a show with Ramiz Raja, there's a connection there. Likewise, Wasim Khan, there's a real connection there. There's a mutual respect. Which is your favorite guest or the guest that you bond best with among former players?
Well, one reason for that is, Abdullah, I'll come to the, I'll answer your question in the second part. But the main thing is that since I covered cricket a lot in the 90s and up to 2006, I was doing all the tours and all. So obviously, I developed very good relations with these guys, especially in the 90s. And guys who played in the 90s like Ramiz, Bakar, Wasim, Rashid, Moin, Amir Sohail, Saeed Anwar, Saklan Mushtaq, Mushtaq Ahmed, Ijaz Ahmed, Salim Malik, all these guys who played in the 90s or early, after 2000, Inzi and all. I have a very good, solid relationship with them. So whenever I do shows with them, it's we have a certain comfort level, like doing a show because they show a lot of respect because they are very comfortable and they have a lot of trust in the sense that they know me back from years and they know what sort of a person I am, what's my journalism background. So it makes it very easy to do shows with them. I love doing shows with Ramiz, Wakar, and all these guys. It's really enjoyable. Easy. But if it I mean TV is all about TRP ratings. If you talk about TRP ratings, then at times I feel that the shows I do with Tanveer Ahmed, Tanveer has just played 5 test matches or 6 test matches. But as far as TRP ratings are concerned, then he seems to be the best man to do the show with because we always seem to get good ratings. But whenever I've done shows with Ramiz, especially, we've got some very good TRP ratings and very good views and all this stuff. So I'm very comfortable doing shows with these guys who played in the 90s and later on.
And
In fact, I just did a interview with Misbah for my YouTube channel a few days back, just last week. And if you see that interview, you can see there's a certain level of respect for each other. There's a certain level of comfort with each other. And if your guest is comfortable with you, and if you're showing him the proper, if you're giving him the proper respect, you can ask the toughest questions. You can ask questions which can prick your guest. But there's a method of asking those questions. If you're rude, if you're trying to badger him, if you're trying to pressurize him, then I don't think he will feel very good. And then what happens is they go into a shell, they don't respond to your questions that way. But if they're feeling comfortable with you and if you phrase your questions properly, then I think they're willing to answer anything you ask them. They're willing to respond to anything that you throw at them. So that's good. That's very good. So that makes it really worthwhile doing stuff with these guys.
And do you sometimes get disappointed with your guests in terms of the lack of research they occasionally do? I'll give you an example here. Last year, when the India World Cup squad was announced, you had a guest called Ghulam Ali on the show. And the discussion was about Ambati Raidu being left out, Vijay Shankar coming in, and he brought up the point that they left out a left-hander, Ambati Raidu. He thought, do you occasionally get frustrated and disappointed with your guests? They should come prepared for shows. They should do their research. They should
Very
know
disappointed.
what.
I get very disappointed because my point of view is very simple. That if you have adopted this as a profession, if you are a cricket analyst, a cricket expert, even if you're a former player or even a journalist, and if you're sitting regularly on channels and speaking about cricket, then you need to do your research. You need to know everything that's happening not just what's happening in Pakistan cricket, but what's happening all over the world. And it's just not Ghulam Ali. There have been many instances where I've literally had to I've lost my cool and I've scolded the guest on the set, telling them that you should be doing your homework and factually you got this all wrong or you don't know what's happening. But then I guess you can't force anyone. There are a couple of guys, who are regularly appearing on TV, who do the research very well, who are very well informed. It gets it's much more easier to do shows with people who are well researched, who know what you're talking about. If I'm talking to someone like Ramiz, I know he's well researched, he's got all the background, he's updating himself every day. So anything, whatever I discuss with him, referring to cricket or even politics, he's well versed. So that makes a big difference. You should know what you're saying, and because the viewer is watching you. My take on this is that even if 10 guys are watching your show, they are watching your show because they believe that whatever you're saying is authentic and whatever you're saying is factually correct. And if you're not giving them the correct, facts, or if you're giving them misleading information or false information, incorrect information, that's very bad, and that's like unacceptable in for a senior media person like me. In my dictionary, it's totally unacceptable.
And another thing I want to come on to is there's a lack of English-speaking medium in Pakistan's sports journalism industry. There are lots of Pakistanis in US, UK who don't have Urdu as their primary language, second generation, third generation Pakistanis who predominantly speak English and understand English, but they're still Pakistan fans. They still have Pakistani connection, Pakistan family roots. How come we don't see enough English-speaking medium? Like in India, there are some channels who do exclusively sport shows in English. How come we don't see enough of it in Pakistan?
That's because obviously predominantly we don't have too many. In fact, we just have one. I think it's called Indus, one English channel, television channel. That says a lot. Then we had Dawn used to do. It started off as the English language channel, then it converted to Urdu. I was in Geo English. I had joined Geo English. It was supposed to launch in a grand manner. That project also fizzled out. That's because what they say is that there's a very limited audience for English newspapers and channels. Personally, you ask me, I don't subscribe to that argument because I still feel that there is a viewership and readership for English speaking, shows or newspapers. Yeah. But unfortunately, in Pakistan, that's not the way people look at it. And it's a fact that in Pakistan, we don't have too many, people who are good at speaking English or who have done English journalism. So that is why that's one of the reasons why we don't see many people. Even most of our former players, if you look at them, if you hear them, they can't speak English properly, and that makes a big difference. It limits you as a host, and even if you are a reporter. But the good thing is that now I'm seeing is that a couple of young new people are coming up who are very good at this, who have a good command over English, who write well, who speak well. So that's a good sign. But I think in Pakistan you'll never have a situation where English is widely, accepted, or you'll see a lot of people speaking English or understanding English. So that's always going to be a problem in Pakistan.
Yes, and just coming on to that, that's one of the reasons I've started this sort of podcast and interviews because I feel there's a gap in the market in terms of a Pakistan audience, but having an English element to it, because there are lots of podcasts, lots of interview channels that do it in Urdu. So I was trying to be different and trying to bring it out in English, and I'm glad that we could have someone of your stature with us today. So I'll come back onto the questions. I'd like to ask about your career highlights. I'm thinking of when you anchored the 2011 World Cup and Imran Khan was on the panel. Um,
Yeah.
that must
Yeah,
have
he
been
was. Imran Khan was there, and we had a lot of other big names as well, and a great experience. We did 2011 World Cup thoroughly in the sense that at that time Geo Super had the rights. Which are events that we covered on Geo Super? With Geo Super, like broadcast the live matches, which they had rights to broadcast rights. We enjoyed doing those shows because if you're doing a talk show and if you have if you are one of the right holders, it makes it's more fun, because you have the footage, you have everything behind you, you have the graphics and the stats to go with, and then even your experts, you get good experts because then former players big former players, they are more willing to come on to channels during events who are like the right holders. That's one of the reasons why you see a lot of big names on PTV sports because they have rights to nearly every tournament. Geo Super used to have rights to quite a few tournaments, and then we did a lot of leagues and all. but that's not the case now. But 2011 was, yes, a great experience because after a long time, I had a chance to get in touch with Imran again. And like when I started out covering cricket and started my career as a sport journalist, the first event that I covered was the Pakistan Sri Lanka match in Hyderabad, the 1987 World Cup, when Imran was the captain. And I've covered him as a player, as a captain from 87 to 92. So he's a very what do you call it? A very difficult sort of he was a very difficult sort of personality to establish a proper link with or have a proper understanding. But it was fun covering him because he had his own method of doing things. He had his own method of dealing with the media. So when I came across him again in 2011, it was a great experience. But Imran is Imran, and obviously he's got this persona. I mean, in my career as a journalist, in fact, in my entire life, I met two people, Abdullah, people who I would describe I mean, the sort of people who, when they walk into a room, they have that awe factor about them. You're totally captured by the personality, by the charisma. And those two people that I always felt that way about was one when I started off very early on, and Muhammad Ali, the great boxer, he came down first time to Pakistan, so I did an interview with him at the Karachi airport. So when he walked into the VIP lounge, it was an amazing feeling. And the second personality is Imran. Imran has got that charisma, which is when you sit with him and talk to him, you get those vibes. You're talking to someone really who's achieved a lot. So it was really enjoyable doing that to 2011 World Cup, and unfortunately, Pakistan lost in the semi-final. A match we should have won, but then I think that's how life goes.
And another thing I can think of is when Sri Lanka were playing Pakistan in the UAE in 2013 and early 2014. Geo Super also had the official rights for that series, and you were anchoring the shows, and that's when the famous Muhammad Yusuf Ramiz Raja exchange happened
Yeah,
during one of
yeah, yeah. That was like totally it came out of the blue because just a day before Yusuf, and I think Shoaib was also with us. Shoaib Akhtar was also with us. Shoaib Akhtar was actually at that time signed on Geo News, but he insisted that I want to sit on Geo Super also. So they said, okay, fine, you can sit on the Geo Super show also. So the evening before, he and Yusuf, I think it was Shoaib who said that if someone can speak good English and all, it doesn't mean that he knows everything about cricket or he's a good cricketer. It was like you could, it was understandable. It was aimed at Ramiz. So the next morning when we started and Ramiz came online, we used to take Ramiz and Waqar online to deliver on the commentary panel in the first, pre-match show. And his first words I remember, कि वो, किधर है वो घोड़ा या something like that, and I was like totally, I said, ये क्या हो रहा है भाई, ये क्या कह रहा है ये? And it took me just a couple of seconds to realize कि यार ये कुछ मसला हो गया है यहाँ पर ठीक ठाक. And he said, तुम लोग कैसे कैसे लोग तुम लोग बैठा देते. Then I told him that I said, क्या रमीज, मतलब यूसुफ से बड़ा तो हम क्या और किसको बैठाएंगे, मतलब नाम तो है ना क्रिकेट का, चूड़ा है वो और ऐसा है and all that stuff. Ramiz really lost it that day, and I think he was being a bit unfair at that time, and he should have kept his cool. But immediately after that happened, the interesting part, what people don't know is, and what I'll reveal here for the first time is that Shoaib was leaving for Lahore that day when this happened in the morning. And he came back all the way from the airport. Yusuf called him up. He came back all from the way back from the airport to the studio. And he and Yusuf insisted that we are going to respond to what Ramiz has said. And we are not going to sit quiet and all that sort of stuff. I said, fine. Well, I knew it that the ratings are going to be great if something like this happens. If these two guys also, attack Ramiz on live television, it will be great viewing and great ratings. So I was all for it. But Ramiz very smartly, what he did was what I think what he did was that realizing after a while, after having cooled down, he must have realized that he went a bit over the top. What he did was he had very good relations with the owner of Jangru, Mir Saab. So what I think is that maybe he called him up or whatever, he spoke to him. We got a call just before the evening show from the top management saying that end this Ramiz and Yusuf issue, and you're not going to speak about it at all, and you all shouldn't discuss it. And I was pretty adamant, and I was pretty angry, and I said, "No, why not?" I said, "Because if Ramiz has said something about Yusuf, Yusuf has every right to give a reply and all that sort of stuff." But we were told very strictly that no, that just end it, don't discuss it. Then Shoaib was pretty adamant that no, I will do it, I will do it. But then we explained to him that look, if you insist on speaking of this stuff, nothing will happen. But what will happen is that a few of the people who are working behind the scenes in the MCR and all, they'll end up losing the jobs. And would you like to be responsible for that? Then he also, like, cooled down and he said, okay, I won't speak about it. But it was amazing. It was like, like Ramiz kind about Yusuf and all. मजा आया, बहुत मजा आया था उसमें, बहुत मजा आया.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the cricket questions now.
Yeah.
Yesterday, there was some news that because the next T20 World Cup in 2021 is going to be held in India, that if the T20 World Cup cannot be held this year in Australia, they will instead host the 2022 version. India is not going to move. They're still going to host the 2021 version. What's your sources on this development?
Look, what I know is that basically, the BCCI, Indian Cricket Board, they are big players in world cricket right now. Whether we like it or not. The biggest market for cricket right now is India. Even the ICC knows that. You look at the ICC events that whether it's the World T20 Cup or the World 50 Overs World Cup, or even women's events or all this sort of stuff, Champions Trophy. The bulk of their sponsorship and money comes from Indian market. So I think my experience says is that India is definitely trying to get this World Cup delayed, postponed up to early next year, or maybe push it a bit ahead, because they are very keen to have the IPL this year. Because if they don't have the IPL this year, they will lose out on a lot of money. They'll lose out on nearly 530 million US dollars. That's the loss of revenues. So I think India will definitely push for this World Cup to be postponed. And the one reason for that is they have a very strong case. Keep that in mind. Because it's not going to be easy, like in this environment to organize a tournament, 16 teams, all the sort of logistics involved and the SOPs to be followed, the safety measures. And then let's keep in mind that if you have the World T20 without spectators, it's going to be, it's not going to be the same at all. Having a World T20 in Australia without spectators will not work. Pakistan Cricket Board has said that it will, like the ICC should wait and delay the decision on this. But one thing is that if they decide to do this, that they say that, okay, we shift this World Cup to 2002, it will cause a lot of issues for the ICC and the member boards, because already the international calendar is so packed, and you can't keep on having World Cups in every year. If they don't have the World Cup this year, that means you have a World Cup in 2021, then you have a World Cup in 2022, then you have the main World Cup in 2023. That's the major issue. And to me, one of the main issues that Indian board will face now is that they have got the hosting rights to the next year's T20 World Cup and 50 over World Cup. But will they be able, are they in a position to get clearance from the government? One, for the tax exemption, I don't think it's going to be that easy. Second, can they get the guarantees from the government that Pakistan will be allowed to play, will be issued visas to play in the World T20 and World 50 Overs Cup? Because the sort of situation prevailing right now between the two countries is not, I don't think is that sort of situation where the Indian government will, it will be very easy to get clearance from them. Just recently, the women's team series was cancelled for this very reason. We've had other sporting events being cancelled for this very reason, that the Indian government is not willing to give clearance for teams from Pakistan. So the Indian board, I think, is going to face a couple of tough, decisions to make. But the ICC is meeting today, so let's see what happens. My personal take is I think they'll delay a decision on what to do with this World Cup, because they have time. So most probably what they'll say is that let's wait till the end of June or mid-July. And by that time, some cricket would have resumed, bilateral cricket would have resumed. So we'll be in a better position to take a decision on the World T20.
So we touched on India there, and I want to continue this theme on India. There seems to be a lot of praise from India in Pakistan media, ex-players in particular on their various YouTube channels. But if you look at the facts of the matter, In the last 10 Test series India have played in England, Australia, New Zealand, or South Africa, they've lost 9 of them. And the one series they did win in Australia, Smith and Warner were absent. Uh, India, despite all their finances and resources, they didn't win the 2014 World T20. They did not win the 2015 World Cup. They didn't win the 2016 World T20. They didn't win the 2017 Champions Trophy. They didn't win the 2019 World Cup. Even at the women's level, India have not won a world title yet in women's cricket. Why is this hype so much in Pakistan, ex-players, particularly on YouTube, overpraising India? Is India really the benchmark for Pakistan? Because given their finances and given their resources, their results are modest when it comes to winning world tournaments and in terms of performing in overseas conditions, what we call the SENA countries, England, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, when it comes to Test cricket. Are they really the benchmark for Pakistan and who Pakistan should be aspiring to be like?
think as far as our former players, YouTubers, focusing on India and the sort of stuff is concerned, I don't think the benchmark is the performance. I think the benchmark is the sort of viewership they get from India. I'll give you a small example of that. I'll be very honest here. I do my YouTube channel. When I look at the stats after every show, I see that around 60% of my viewership, 62% of my viewership is coming from India. That's a lot. From Pakistan, it's around 20%. It's growing slightly, but it's around 20%. So I think it's about basically when we talk about so much about India on our former players talk about India, or even people like me talk about India. When we focus on Indian cricket a lot, it's not to do with the fact that India has a benchmark as a cricketing nation. It's more to do with the fact that their market has the money. And if you want to, have a profitable YouTube venture, any other venture which concerns cricket, then you can't ignore the fact that you have to have viewership from India and you have to tap the Indian market. So that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of Indian content. My only action with that is that okay, fine, you speak about India, I speak a lot about India, but be balanced. Where you have to criticize them, you have to criticize them. Where if you're talking about Indian cricket, you should also be talking about Pakistan cricket as a Pakistani player, and don't go over the board praising these guys. Like for example, I was a bit, to me it made no sense. Shoaib Akhtar saying just recently that if I had played against Virat Kohli, we would have been great friends off the field. We would have been fierce competitors on the field. And since we are both from Punjabi families, it makes no sense to me. A person you have not played against, why are you talking about the fact that if you had played, it was just an attempt to, get Indian viewership. That's what I mean is, that's what happened. That's what is happening, especially on social media. Even in the mainstream media, we go for Indian headings, we get session because we know that we get the views from there. But at the end of the day, as a brand, as a cricketing brand, if you look at it, Abdullah, I think the Indians have, because they have the market and they have the money, they have managed to become a brand. The team is a brand. It's a benchmark in the sense that if any cricket board wants to make money from a series or from cricket, then they know that they have to play with India. You might argue that Pakistan has not played with India in a bilateral series since the last 13 years, but yet Pakistan cricket is still surviving and going on fine. But I think if Pakistan with India in this 13 years, the Pakistan board would have had more funds, more money to carry out more development things in Pakistan cricket, like grounds and the structure and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's not about that Indian cricket is the benchmark as far as performances are concerned. I think it's the benchmark for that the money and the views are there in Indian cricket. Pakistan team unfortunately has never been able to market itself as a brand. I put down that failure to our Pakistan cricket board and the very fact that we have too much negative coverage about and critical coverage about our cricket compared to other countries. If you look at the fact that in Pakistan, Pakistan is supposed to go to New Zealand end of this year, and already we are hearing from New Zealand cricket that they might reschedule the Pakistan series to play against Australia to make money and all that sort of stuff. So it just shows that then what's the standing of Pakistan cricket? This is a team which has been number one in World 20 for 18 months, which has been championship, which has won the Champions Trophy, which has we done well in the last few years, to be very honest. But has not our performance has not been in sync with our our branding as we have not been able to become a brand. There have been instances where Pakistan has gone and played in Zimbabwe, Pakistan has played in New Zealand, these things, of these instances. And these countries didn't have sponsors for the Pakistan series. And the sponsors came from the sponsors in Sri Lanka, in New Zealand, in Zimbabwe. The series was made with sponsors from Pakistan because no sponsor there was willing to, the cricket boards couldn't find. So that says a lot about our standing, our branding as a team. So I think the cricket board needs to work a lot on this, on how we market our team.
Now, when Mickey Arthur was removed as Pakistan coach, there was a bit of a source, inside source, saying that Imran Khan had an impact, had some sort of say that no more Mickey Arthur, because we know Imran's not too keen on coaches, particularly coaches who aren't big players, who haven't played Test cricket or anything like that. Is there any truth in that Imran had some sort of role that he wanted fresh leadership after that failure to make the World Cup semi-finals?
Yes, definitely Imran had a role, and Imran had a role in Misbah's appointment as head coach and chief selector. Imran had a role in the decision to remove Sarfaraz as captain in all three formats. I mean, you can't expect, that if you have someone like Imran Khan as the prime minister and petty chief of the cricket board, no matter what anyone says that no, we don't interfere or whatsoever. But I know for a fact that yes, Imran has a say. Imran definitely gives advice. Even in our domestic restructuring, he was the one who made it very clear that he wants six teams to be playing provincial cricket. And so definitely, it was because it was on the advice of Imran that the Pakistan Cricket Board released Mickey Arthur. They brought in Misbah, and they decided to replace Raj as captain. There's no two, in my mind, there's no two ways about it.
Another question I'd like to ask is about Salman Butt. There seems to be a PCB policy that no matter how many runs he scores in domestic cricket, they're not going to pick him. Now it's even more difficult with the emergence of Abid Ali. But I thought when Pakistan were going to play the Test series in Australia in November, he scored a double hundred in the Qaid Azam Trophy. He had a good Test record in Australia. He was a contender for that trip. There just seems to be a bit of a feeling in the Pakistan Cricket Board that no matter how many runs he scores, there's an inside policy there that no, we can't pick him. It's going to create too much hassle in terms of Pakistan's perception in the Western world. Negative headlines falling on the team like they did when Amir returned. Do you also get that impression, or have you had sources that no matter how many runs Salman Butt scores, he's going to be ignored as far as national honours are concerned?
Yes, I think you're correct about that because there's been a policy, a sort of unofficial policy that they won't pick Salman Butt because when Salman Butt came back, when he was allowed back into cricket, when he completed his ban, he was the fittest player. He worked a lot on his fitness, worked a lot on his game. So when he came back in domestic cricket, he scored a lot of runs, and he's a very good player. There's no doubt about that. And at that time, if you recall, Pakistan was missing an opener. They required a good test opener. But at the back of at the end of the day, this is also, I believe, because the passing field board doesn't have a clear policy on players who are punished for corruption cases, in corruption cases, and you don't have a uniform policy, and that's not right because if you're going to allow Ahmed to come back, then there's no reason why you shouldn't allow Salman but to come back. But you have the argument that Amir, admitted early on that he was involved at that time, all this sort of stuff. But there have been other players who have been allowed back. So I think the board had unjust with Salman but the people I've spoken to, what they say is that the main reason why they have been very reluctant to allow him back is not because of the ICC or any other reason. For the simple reason that they say that Salman Butt was the captain of the Pakistan team in 2010, and as captain, he's more than responsible for what took place. So that's one of the reasons why he has never been, considered. And when the team was going for the 2016 T20 World Cup, it is a fact that Waqar had even told Salman that you're going, and they were about to select him, but then Shahid Afridi stepped in and said that no way I'm going to allow this guy back into the team. That was, I think, unfair on part of Shahid Afridi, because if you were expecting if you were willing to play with Amir in your team, then there was no reason why you shouldn't, not have Salman. But then there's another factor, and that factor is of insecurity. Most of the players who are playing in the Pakistan team who have been playing the Pakistan team in the past 5 6 years, that they know that Salman Butt is a good player. They know that Salman Butt he's got a good cricket. He's very aware of his skills, his strength, and all that sort of stuff. So even that level of insecurity was there. That if he comes back, then some other guys may lose their team, that sort of thing. But I think it's been unfair on Salman in the sense that he should have been given a chance. But then at the same time, if you look at it this way, line is that these guys brought it on themselves. I mean, Salman at the time when he was banned, I think the biggest mistake that he made was obviously getting involved in this. The second mistake that he made was not admitting early on that yes, this had happened. He had made a mistake. So I think it's sad, but then I mean, what can you say? It's something that happened, and it was a big loss. More than Salman, I think the biggest loss to Pakistan cricket was Mohammad Asif. He was such a fine bowler and such a great exponent of the new ball.
So next question about split coaching. It's hardly talked about in Pakistan. I just think that in modern cricket, it's not necessary to have the same coach for Test cricket, ODI cricket, T20 cricket. You can have separate coach in red ball cricket, separate coach in white ball cricket, because it helps manage the workload of the coaches and brings specialist skills. Someone's more knowledgeable in Test cricket, has had more success in Test cricket. He can coach the Test side. Someone else can take over for white ball cricket, limited overs cricket. What's your view on split coaching? I don't think in the modern game it's necessary to have just one coach for all three forms of cricket.
I think in Pakistan cricket culture, theoretically, if you look at it, it's not a bad idea to have different coaches. But in Pakistan cricket culture, Abdullah, it becomes a very different, to have different coaches. Because, it's the way we play our cricket, the way our players are, brought up, and the sort of culture that we have, is going to be very difficult for the players to adjust with different coaches. And it will also be difficult for the coaches themselves to, different coaches working with the same set of players, more or less the same set of players. It will be very difficult for them. But I definitely feel that in Pakistan, since the PSL started, uh, uh, we have got more talent in T20 cricket, and we have developed a more professional outlook towards T20 cricket. So you have a very good point, and I think if nothing else, they can start off by experimenting with having a different coach for just T20 cricket to see how it goes. For the time being, just leave Misbah with the ODI team and the Test team and see how the coach goes with the T20 team, with the other coach. If he gets the desired results, if he gets good results, then definitely then you can also consider handing over the ODI team. But yes, I think the sort of cricket that is being played now, the one reason why I feel this should happen is because what is happening is that the same coach, you have the same coach, same more or less the same set of players. Uh, the fallout is that those players are trying to play T20 cricket even in Test cricket. That is why we are not finding batsmen who have the required application, the patience, and the skills to good Test batsmen. It's very rare to find players who are good at in all three formats, like Babar Azam is an example. But it's not easy to find a player who can quickly adjust in all three formats. So I think in Pakistan cricket that's more true. So I would definitely yes experiment with a different T20 team, a different coach, and see how it goes because we seem to be still lacking in white ball cricket. The concept of power hitting, the concept of power play, all this sort of stuff, we are still behind in that.
We've recently seen Pakistan players giving video sessions online, various players, Mohammad Yusuf, Shoaib Akhtar, Rashid Latif, Mushtaq Ahmed, you name it. And it was very interesting, I found, that for the Pakistan women's team, they had Wasim Akram and Babar Azam. Now, in Pakistan women's cricket, the highest individual score in women's Test cricket is by a Pakistani, Kiran Baloch.
Yes.
Why are we not honouring our own women players? They've got a lot to offer with their experience, their knowledge, their stories when they used to play. Uh, when Pakistan cricket was in its infancy, as far as women's cricket was concerned, why are we not acknowledging our own female heroes?
I think the reason for that is that Kiran, I've been in touch with Kiran, and I think the reason for that is Kiran herself has, moved away from cricket. I had invited her to one of my shows, and she said that, I don't want to get involved in cricket at all now because I'm far away from cricket. And I tried to convince her, tell her that you should be coming up and you contribute a lot to women's cricket and that sort of stuff, but she was just not willing to do it. Second thing is that these group of girls when they played, Karan Baloch and the Shadia sisters and all those girls who played, uh, uh, they uh, they basically their setup was taken over by the PCB in the early 2000s time period, and so they have never got along. Those group of girls with the current setup. So I think that's one of the reasons why one Kiran herself is not interested. Most of the girls of that era are not interested in getting involved in cricket. And secondly, the Pakistan Cricket Board itself, doesn't want to encourage them to come into cricket. So we have the current women's cricket setup is totally different from what it was when Kiran was playing. But no doubt, Kiran was a very good player and a very good, one of the finest women players we have produced. But unfortunately, she never got that recognition that she deserved. Because I think with her experience, she should have been utilized in the Pakistan women's setup as well. But even that has not happened. But Wasim and Babar, Wasim, I'm particularly giving online lectures to women's cricket was not a bad idea at all. I think Wasim also gave to the fast bowlers, but also to the women's cricketers. So I don't think it was a bad idea. But unfortunately, in Pakistan cricket, the ego issues and all also matter a lot. So that's one of the reasons why I think Kiran has been sidelined, or she has sidelined herself.
Okay. So your WK, I'm going to ask about another WK, Wasim Khan. He comes with a big reputation. He came with a big raps to Pakistan. I personally have known about his credentials here because before he took on the Pakistan role, people used to speak very highly of him here, particularly with the work he was doing in state schools, increasing participation of cricket in state schools here with chance to shine. What's your impression of him so far in terms of the decisions he's made? Not just you, but what's the feeling like in the Pakistan journalistic community of his credentials and what he's done so far, and where he can take Pakistan cricket forward?
No, I think Wasim has, I think in the 2 months that he has been with the cricket board so far, because uh, uh, say not even a year, he has not even completed a year so far in the cricket board as CEO. But he's already taken a couple of key decisions. Like today, they've appointed Grant Bradburn as the high performance center coach. They've appointed Saklan as the international performance coach. So the changes, he's making the changes. He's trying to convert the NCA into a more effective sort of high performance center, and he's bringing his ideas from UK, what he applied in English cricket with Leicester and all, into Pakistan cricket. And it's not a bad idea, I think, because we need more professionals in Pakistan cricket. Abdullah. Definitely, there's no two ways about it. We have a lot of talent, but we just don't have a proper system. We need a system which stays in place regardless of who's running the cricket board or who's not running the cricket board. So I think Wasim has done a good job so far with Pakistan cricket, and I think he will be doing much more. People, I don't think have realized it yet, but when he first came in, they will just talk about his salary and all that sort of stuff, or that he can't speak proper Urdu and all that sort of stuff. But I think people now have started realizing that this is a guy who wants to deliver results, who wants to see things happening. So on that front, I think is definitely in less than 1 year's time, he's already there's been a lot of move and shake in the past and structure. Yes, he will make mistakes. He will make mistakes in his decisions because he's new to the Pakistan culture, and he told me that. But he's learning, and he's a pretty intelligent guy. So I don't think it will take him much time to get to know how Pakistan cricket works.
And I think his litmus test is going to be in the year 2022 when Australia, New Zealand, and England are due to tour Pakistan for test tours, and whether he can convince those teams to tour. What's your feeling? I mean, it's still some way off, but that's really going to be the challenge, isn't it? Whether he can convince those teams, Australia, New Zealand, and England, to tour. I think England is the most likely of the three, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this post coronavirus world with regards to traveling to Pakistan.
I think Abdullah, he's already the fact that he's already made the achievement in the sense that he's got the Australian Cricket Board, England Cricket Board, New Zealand Cricket Board to even consider touring Pakistan. If you look few years back, they were not even considering touring Pakistan. But the very fact that now they're talking about touring Pakistan, they're talking about the fact that yes, we are assessing the situation and we will see what we can do, and if the situation is okay, we can go over it. The very fact that he has got FICA, the International Players Association CEO, to visit Karachi, the fact that he's got ICC officials from the Indian Cricket Board, Cricket Australia, to come down to Lahore, visit Pakistan, that I said think is a big achievements, and those are the first big steps towards. If conditions remain as they are right now in 2022, then I have no doubt that we'll see Australia, England playing in Pakistan. Yes, they will come. If conditions remain the same and if we have the setup, because these guys have already managed to, change the perception about Pakistan's security and situation a lot. And don't forget that after 10 years, we had Sri Lankan and Bangladesh teams playing test matches in Pakistan. You might say that that is Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and that is England and Australia. But the fact that teams coming to Pakistan and playing test match cricket after such a long time, that I think will open the will eventually convince even England and Australia to say okay, we are coming over to cricket in Pakistan. So I think it's going to happen. Yes, it will happen.
But I have concerns whether he can actually convince those boards because despite his links with the ECB, Wasim Khan, we still saw England women's team play Pakistan in Malaysia in December instead of playing in Pakistan. Even one.
That's because Abdullah is going to take some time.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen immediately. He got the MCC to send a team over the Singapore right now. I think your question, what you're asking, is my answer is that yes, he's already got them thinking about touring Pakistan. That's a big achievement itself. He's got them thinking. He's got them talking about touring Pakistan. He's managed to get the officials to Pakistan because we had the Cricket Australia chairman and CEO over in Pakistan. We've had the ECB being in touch with Pakistan and some of the officials also coming over. So I think he's at least managed now to get them thinking about touring Pakistan. In a few years back, they were not even thinking about that option. So that's why I feel that in 2 years' time, he will be able to convince them that you need to come down and play a short series or whatever.
So the next question I'm going to come on to is we recently had opinions about Babar Azam and his English after being appointed Pakistan's ODI captain. What's your view? Because I'll just give you an idea of my view first. I think it's going to be difficult toss, presentation, press conference, particularly when you play in England, Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, all of these English-speaking countries, even India, West Indies. When you can't communicate in English and communicate effectively in English, and I think this attitude that English doesn't matter and he's just there to play cricket is why we produce so few commentators and why Ramiz has not had any competition for the last 20 years in terms of any other Pakistan players really coming through and challenging him for slots in the commentary box. What's your view?
I've heard that the Pakistan Cricket Board, Wasim and Mani, have now made it a matter of policy that all of our players who were not able to speak proper English or that sort of stuff, they are they're going to be put through a grooming course and language course. And Babar also has already started taking classes for the English language. So I think that's a good sign because you're right. There's nothing wrong if you have a captain who's well versed in speaking in English and understanding English, because when you are playing in England, South Africa, New Zealand, any country, if you are attending a presidential ceremony, I think it gives you an edge if you are able to converse well and express yourself well in English. because it means that you are touching a broader audience. Let's not forget that. Okay, you people argue that what's wrong with speaking in your local language is translated. I've always felt that when a guy speaks in Urdu and it's translated into English, a lot of his
Yeah.
what he wants to say is lost in translation. I think it's good for him if Babar starts to speak English and good English and understands what's being asked of him, because I think then he will be able to touch a broader audience. And I think the sort of batsman, the class that he's in right now, he should be he should learn English quickly, because he's going to be one of the world's top players, top three, four players. So he's going to have a lot of interactions with the media. There's going to be a lot of interest in him. He's going to be a brand. So he has to, groom himself. And currently, the way he speaks is not going to work at all. I've conveyed this to a couple of guys in the cricket board also, and I told them, I said that, it doesn't work if you have your Pakistan captain sitting and telling the media people, if he's asked a question saying, Sir, aapne jo kaha, it doesn't look good. The Pakistan captain doesn't need to say sir to anyone, you know. So I think he definitely needs a lot of grooming, and that is also the issue we had with Sarfaraz also. I mean, Sarfaraz could speak a bit of English, but he was not very, precise, and he didn't have clarity about what these guys fail to understand is that if you can't expressing yourself properly as a captain, as a player nowadays, is one of the is I think as important as your fitness, as your skill level and your game awareness. To me, it's that important. You asked a question early on that why is India considered a benchmark? One of the reasons why India is considered also, I mean, given so much, importance is because most of the players speak are very well groomed. Look at Virat Kohli. He's so well groomed. He knows how to, promote himself, he's a brand. He speaks so well. He expresses himself so well. From a media point of view, you always love to have discussions or attend press conferences of players who can express themselves. Because if they can express themselves well, it means they will give you very good quotes. And when you get good quotes, it makes a good story. So that is why I think Babar definitely, this is a very important question that I hope that he's put through the paces. He learns English, he learns to speak English well, and he learns to understand. It's also equally important to understand well as well, because he's going to be captain for a while now. I can tell you that, Abdullah. So he needs to be groomed. Yes, he should be groomed.
Because I hear some people on forums or on social media saying that these footballers from Brazil, Spain can't speak English, but that's different. Cricket, the universal language in cricket is English. All of the top teams speak English. So you can't compare it with
Exactly,
football.
and there's no comparison there. In that sense, if you ask me, countries like China, Korea, and Japan, they're economic powers. Most of the guys don't speak in English; they speak in the local language, but they can get away with it because it's all about whether you are the need of the media, the people, or whether they're your need. I mean, if you're in a position like say you're a Ronaldo or you're a what do you call it, Lionel Messi, then fine. Even if you speak in Spanish, you will be covered because I mean this stature as athletes is superb. But in English, you're very right. English in cricket, English is the main has always been the main language of conversation and communication. So I think you can't compare that with football and other sports. That argument is just doesn't hold.
So I want to talk about there are lots of Pakistan players, big names, with modest records when it comes to ODI World Cups. For example, Muhammad Yusuf, he never scored a World Cup 50 against a test playing nation. Lots of Inzamam, an average of 23 in World Cups, played five World Cups. Yunus Khan, an average in the low 20s, played four World Cups. And then you have players who are perhaps not very underrated, but have performed in World Cups, who have exceeded expectations in World Cups, who are not talked about as much, like Ramiz Raja, three World Cup centuries put by him.
Mm.
Misbah ul Haq, only Javed Miandad scored more World Cup 50 plus scores than Misbah. Do you think in Pakistan not enough emphasis is given to performance in World Cups and major competitions when rating players? Because if you look at
It's
it,
not about emphasis, Abdullah. I think it's about the fact that we never go into a World Cup with proper preparation. If you look at the 2015 World Cup, 2019 World Cup, even the 2019 World Cup, just that's a prime example. Till the last moment, we didn't know who was going to be in the team and who was going to be out. If you recall, at the last moment they dropped Fahim Ashraf. At the last moment they included Wahab Riaz. At the last moment they decided that Abid shouldn't be playing. This has been happening. I think the one World Cup that we went into very well prepared was '99 and then 2011, and we saw the results. We reached the final '99. We reached the semi-final in 2011. But your question about the top players like Inzamam or Yusuf and Yunus not getting big scores in the World Cup. Yes, that's especially Inzamam. He's the sort of the caliber, his caliber as a player. He should have got a lot more runs in the World Cup, and he played a number of World Cups. Why he didn't get them, that's a very difficult question to answer. But I think one of the reasons for that is that they don't prepare well. They don't go into the World Cup well prepared. They don't go into the World Cup, with the aim that yes, we are going to do well and we are going to win this World Cup. That is one of the reasons why we tend to not have these sort of performances from our main players.
yes. So just to build on my question, my sort of question was, well, what I was trying to say was that when we pick our all-time ODI 11 from Pakistan, or when we talk about great Pakistan one-day players, emphasis on World Cup performance should be there more than performance in bilateral series. You can't really put Yusuf in an all-time Pakistan ODI 11 when he hasn't got anything to show for it in World Cups, because ODI cricket revolves around World Cups. And I think there's not enough of that emphasis given when rating Pakistan past players when it comes to ODI cricket, what they delivered on the big stage and what they delivered when it matters in an event such as World Cup.
I think, Abdullah, that if you look at the World Cup performances so far, I'll say it again. If as a team, as a unit, you know that the World Cup is going to be held after 2 years, you start preparing yourself mentally for that. You take it it's very important for you. It's a benchmark for you. As a player, you say that, I want to get so runs in the World Cup because it's important. What I'm saying is that is the factor missing in Pakistan. We never seem to go into the big events prepared properly, except for a few exceptions. And that is why even our senior players have not delivered. Inzamam has been a disappointment. Yusuf has been a disappointment. Even Yunus has not got those sort of runs that he should have got. But I think that's the main reason is they don't go into it mentally prepared to deliver those sort of performances. And I think they are more focused on the fact on the series that they're playing. And the reason for that is that that level of insecurity among the players in Pakistan cricket, that they're not sure what is going to happen in the next series or in the series after that. Even the established players, I'll be very honest about it. That makes a huge difference. Knowing that even if you're going through a bad patch, you will not be dropped or you will be back supported by a management, by a cricket board. So I think that's also one of the reasons why our players have not, most of our big players have not got those sort of runs that they should have got in the World Cup. If you go back to 92, 87, these World Cups, you can see that the key players, they got runs. Like Javed got runs, Ramiz got runs, even others. Imran got a lot of runs in the World Cup. That the reason for that was in those days, there was a lot of emphasis on the World Cups. And then those World Cups were also for the first time in 87, the World Cup came to the subcontinent. Then in 96, it came to the world. So it was a different sort of scenario. The preparations were on for a long time. But after 1999, what I've always felt is that after 99, we've just never prepared for the World Cup at all. We haven't gone that mindset, कि नहीं हमने करना है. Or that is the reason why our batsmen have not got runs. Second reason is that our players have not been able to adjust to white ball cricket the way they should have, with the times. The reason why Yusuf didn't get runs or Inzi didn't get runs or Yunus didn't get runs was because cricket was, moving forward. Strike rates were going up. Different strategies were being used to get runs. And our players like Yusuf, Mohammad Yusuf is Mohammad Yusuf, so he doesn't need to change his game. Inzi is Inzi, he doesn't need to change his game. that is also one of the reasons why our main players have missed out on getting runs in the World Cup.
Now, looking ahead to Pakistan's forthcoming tour of England, do you think it will be a big advantage for them if they play in these biosecure environments with zero crowd because of their experience of playing in the UAE? They're used to playing in deathly silence. How much do you think that can benefit them in terms of the environment they'll be playing in?
I think it's a double-edged sword, Abdullah, because if you look at England, the sort of support that the Pakistan team gets in England, the sort of support that India gets in England, because we have such a big, huge Pakistani Indian community in the UK, that most of the players, they say the same thing, that it just feels like we are playing in Pakistan, the sort of support we have. And that, I think, is one of the reasons why, if you look at our performances in England, yeah, what are you saying?
I
You
think
say something.
more so in limited overs cricket, mate. More so in short
But,
form.
but if you look at the record in England, Pakistan's record in England, it's been very good in the last few years. Not only in Test matches, but even in the ICC events. Like we won the World T20 in England, we won the Champions Trophy in England. We just even in 2099, we reached the final of the 50 over World Cup. So English conditions have tended to suit us a lot. I think it will be a disadvantage to Pakistan also, playing before empty stadium, because the sort of atmosphere that they thrive on in England, if that is missing, it will affect them as well. And UAE was a different totally different scenario, where there is no cricket culture basically, and even the players never expected that people will turn up except for on a few days. But in England and UK, they expect people to turn up. They expect the sort of support. So I think it will be a disadvantage to both teams, especially Pakistan, if they want to play before very few thousand or maybe empty stadiums.
Now, I want to ask a question here about hockey, because you've also covered hockey in the past. On 4th December last year, I wrote a tweet that today is 25th anniversary of Pakistan winning the Hockey World Cup. 25th anniversary. Like every time it's 25th March, we see people talking about 1992 World Cup anniversary, even if it's not a significant anniversary, like 25 years, like if it's 26 years, they'll still talk about it. And I realized that I was the only one who tweeted about it being the 25th anniversary of Pakistan winning the Hockey World Cup in 1994. Does that summarize the state of Pakistan hockey at the moment, that no one's aware of the achievements to win?
Very poor shade of hockey in Pakistan. It's sad, it's tragic, and because I covered a lot of hockey, I've done Olympics, World Cups, and all of that. So more so for me, it really hurts at times. It really makes me sad at times to see where hockey has gone, because we were very good in hockey, and I think till 2000 we were very good, and after 2000 things have just gone bad, from bad to worse. Especially in the last few years, things have really like gone downhill. The main reason for that is that hockey has not produced results. If you're not winning in a sports, no one is going to follow you. It's as simple as that. You may have been world champions 50 years back. You may have been whatever, won many titles. But if Brazil is not going to win a World Cup or a major title in the years to come, it will take just a few years, maybe a decade or more, for people to forget about what Brazil achieved in the World Cup. Similar is the case with Pakistan. In Pakistan, the younger generation has no idea of what we achieved in hockey, or even in squash for that matter. And for that, put the blame squarely on the administrators. I mean, they have just not been able to understand the requirements of how hockey has changed. They have not been able to get funds, get sponsors, because they're not respected. And cricket dominates so much in Pakistan that you really need to have very good administrators, marketing experts to get funds for some other sports. So hockey if I put it straight, it's gone down the gutter. It's totally destroyed in Pakistan. I mean, we have reached the stage where, believe me, Abdullah, where if we have a training camp, the players don't know whether they're going to get their dailies or not. Where you have a situation where you are not able to provide them proper, like diet during training camp. We have reached a situation where if you just listen to the story, you'll be shocked. The Pakistan team went 2 years back, about 1 year back, they went to Holland to play some tournament or series there. When the players landed in Holland, sorry, Amsterdam, the PHF had assured them that by the time you land there, we have like made the bookings and we would have made the payments to the hotel online and all that such stuff because the funds are being released by the government. So you are just go straight to the hotel and everything be arranged. When they reached the hotel, no payments had been made because the funds had been delayed from the government, and the hotel people obviously said that no payments, no advance payments. We can't, allow. We can't give you the rooms. They contacted, a couple of phone calls were made. They contacted some of the well-off Pakistanis in Amsterdam. They came to the rescue. They were assured that they would be paid back the money in a week's time. Those Pakistani people, they came forward, they paid for the hotel bills, they paid the advance money, they paid for the daily allowances of the players, for the food, everything. They were paid back the money after a week or 10 days. It's not that they were not paid back, they were paid back the money after a week or 10 days. But you can just understand the state of Pakistan hockey with this one incident, that your national team is going abroad and you don't have even funds to pay the hoteling and the food and the daily results in advance. So I mean, where do you expect the game to go? If you ask any Pakistani kid now, if he remembers any hockey player's name, maybe Sohail Abbas he'll say or Shahbaz he'll say, but other than that, nothing. So hockey to bhul hi jao na, hockey to no one remembers what happened in '94. We won the Asian Games in 2010. After that, no effort was made to build on that victory, to market hockey as a winning sport. Nothing, and it's just it's totally a situation where if the government gives money to the PHF, grants money to the PHF, hockey matches are played. If not, khatam kuch bhi.
We touched on Paul Huck earlier. It's actually his birthday today, so happy birthday to him. But I want to ask a question about his association with Islamabad United being head coach of Pakistan. What's your opinion on this conflict of interest and whether there is some degree of conflict of interest? Because we will never ever see Ravi Shastri coach in the IPL. We will never see Duncan Fletcher when he was coach of India coach in the IPL. And does it affect the credibility of the PSL when we have a national coach coaching a franchise?
That's Indian cricket. This is Pakistan cricket. I think in Pakistan cricket anything is possible. I mean, if you're bringing in Misbah as head coach and chief selector, then obviously you're giving him all the support. And thing is that this conflict of interest issue has been going on in Pakistan cricket for quite a while now. This was going on even when Mickey was there and Azhar was coaching with the Karachi Kings and all. So this has been going on for a while, and the reason for that is that again, no clear policy from the cricket board. Plus, even if you have a policy, you're not willing to stand by that policy. You get a couple of phone calls, and you're willing to change that policy. You're willing to mend the rules. That is the reason why this happens in Pakistan cricket. His experience with the Islam United, I think, is there for everyone to see. But he made some very interesting comments about the fact that when I asked him about his experience in coaching so far, he had some very valid points to give. But I think Misbah right now has the full backing of not only the cricket board, but more importantly, Imran. And if you have the backing of the Prime Minister, of the board's patron in chief, of a former captain who's so powerful, then obviously you can do what you want. And Misbah wanted to have a go with Islam United as the coach. He got that chance. But it's only purely because it's part of the system. It's only because right now he's the blue-eyed boy in Pakistan cricket. Whatever he says, it will be done. But personally, you ask me, I don't think it should be the policy, because if you have a national, people attached with the national team should not be working with the PSL. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. We earlier touched on split coaching. I could understand it if he was only the test coach and then 1 month a year he gave to the PSL, because he's not coaching Pakistan in white ball cricket. But if he's coaching all three formats, that's when I think there is a conflict.
Yes, definitely. Definitely, it's a conflict of interest because, I mean, it's not possible for you to be the national team head coach and chief selector and then at the same time, what do you call it, also be coaching a franchise in PSL. That's not on. That doesn't work. it gives a wrong signal to the players. So I think the PCB made a wrong call, and they should not have, they should have a very clear policy that anyone who's associated with the national team in the management, he will not be part of, or even in the cricket board, he will not be part of any franchise.
But if his national coaching was restricted to Test cricket, I wouldn't mind him coaching in the PSL franchise because
Yes, that's a different issue. That's a different issue. Then that doesn't affect his role as a national team test coach at all. So yes, that you can do. That if he's not involved with the Pakistan T20 team, that's fine.
yeah,
But
yeah.
if he's involved with them, then it's not on. It's not on.
And I would like to ask your opinion as an outsider in Pakistan. What's your opinion on the 100 ball format that was going to be played in England this summer? It's been postponed because of the travel restrictions and obviously the current climate. Your views on the format. And Wasim Khan, he had a fair role to play in this
Very important. Yes, I know. I know.
bringing this format.
Cricket is going to Abdullah change over the next few years. It's very simple. I think the way we are headed, you're going to see more such 100 ball cricket, T10 cricket, T20 cricket. The emphasis is going to be on these things more because it's all about now commercialism. Every board wants to make money. And I think this 100 ball cricket concept was not a very, I would say, not a very attractive sort of concept. And obviously, people want to see cricket, but I personally feel it won't be as successful as T20 cricket, say, or T10 cricket would be. I would personally have gone. I would personally think about making changes to the format, to the existing ODI format, for example. That would They should be focusing on ODI cricket because at times you feel that 50 overs is a lot. You need to have some changes in that. Sachin had given a very good idea. A couple of other players also, two innings, and I think that would be great because it would bring in more. It would create a lot of interest, and plus that basically means that you're getting a chance to see every player twice in a match, if possible. You're getting a chance to see a bowler ball in two innings in a match. So I think the ICC and cricket board should be working on these sort of concepts. I mean, 100 ball cricket, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. But unfortunately, I don't. It's been delayed till next year. So until it doesn't happen, we don't know what's going to happen. But I don't think it will be as popular as T20 cricket or T10 cricket.
Fair enough. So today is obviously Misbah ul Haq's birthday. How would you rate him as a player, as a captain? For me, he was one of the best players of spin bowling I've seen in terms of reverse sweeping, hitting sixes. He was so strong against spin bowling, and there's not been a better Pakistan captain in terms of his own batting performances as captain. I mean, he scored the most Test centuries by a Pakistan captain, and he also always performed in world events. Leading run scorer at 2011 World Cup, leading run scorer at 2013 Champions Trophy, leading run scorer at 2015 World Cup. And it's one of the great stories to be able to start your captaincy at the age of 36, a late bloomer. From 36, being able to stretch his captaincy to the age of 42, 5 Test centuries after the age of 40. Most sixes by a Pakistan cricketer in Test cricket. I mean, all of these things, he's got lots of unique stats he's got. Just a word on him. You've recently interviewed him as well on his birthday, and how you'd rate him as a player.
I think Misbah has not got the credit that he deserves because I think he played a major role. You may say a lot of people, talk about this. He was a defensive player, defensive captain, took most of the tests he played in UE and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of people, the anti-camp, they give the reasons. But personally, you ask me, I think his role in Pakistan cricket has been very significant in the sense that the time that he picked up the team was a very bad time for Pakistan cricket. 2009, we had this militant attack. Teams had stopped coming to Pakistan. Then we had this spot fixing scandal. And he came in at a very difficult time to take charge. Knowing the sort of personality that Yunus and all these people had, I think that was the best choice that Ijaz Butt made, was making Misbah as captain, because Misbah all round has been a very stable, very patient, very sensible, very logical sort of person. Uh, you compare him to Yunus, they are totally two different personalities. Yunus as a captain was very temperamental. He had his mood swings, and it was always I always felt that he was not put out to be a captain, because as a captain, you need to be your first requirement is that you need to be a performer yourself, which he was, Misbah. And second requirement is you need to be very patient with the players, because at the end of the day, it's the players who are going to win you matches. It's about how you manage the team. And I think Misbah did that wonderfully well, because look at the team that he inherited. There was no Asif, there was no Ahmed, there was no Salman Butt. Shoaib Akhtar retired after a year in 2011.
Area,
He,
area as well.
he built a team from scratch. He built the test team from scratch. He built the ODI team from scratch, the T20 team from scratch. So I think his contribution is immense, and plus the fact that he performed himself. Uh, Yusuf says a lot of things about him, that he used to
Yeah.
he was a ordinary player, this and that. But I think, I mean, his record says otherwise. He's been a wonderful captain and player. And I think his biggest call was his captaincy. He was very calm. He got along well with all his coaches. That's the biggest thing. He got along well with his players. In the time that he was captain, there was just one instance, if I recall, of news coming out in the media about Shahid Afridi and Misbah, some sort of disagreement. Other than that, for 7 years that man was captain, and Abdullah, not a single story came out in the media about him having any problem with any player, or any player having any problem with him. And that itself, I think, speaks. It says everything. I mean, this is a captain who captained Pakistan for 7 years without having any issues in the team with any coach, any manager, any other player. That's his biggest achievement. That he managed to gel the team together. He managed to get results. And if he was forced to play in UAE, that's not his problem. That's what can he do about it?
Like in New
He had no
Zealand,
option.
like in New
He had,
Zealand, Sri Lanka, West Indies, you also won Test series in these countries. New Zealand, Sri Lanka, West Indies.
That's not an argument at all. I mean, the biggest thing is that he developed a strategy to win in UAE. He knew how to win on the UAE pitches against good team. That's the big achievement. And he's done well. Misbah has done well as a captain. There's no two ways about it at all. He's just, if you ask me, his worst series as a captain has been to Australia. That's all. When he played in Australia, he didn't have to, or South Africa. But even in South Africa, he won a one-day series for the first time. First Pakistani captain to win a one-day series in South Africa. Plus in ODI cricket, we did well in South Africa. In Test matches, we didn't do well in South Africa. But otherwise, I think he's done well overall against all teams. He went to India and won one day and T20 series there. What more do we want? We won in India under his captaincy. So I think people have been very unfair with him, and very, very unfair. And I think you have to give him credit that during his time he developed some players. Okay, you may say that they were his favorite players and all that, but he developed them. He developed players like Azhar Ali, he developed players like Asad Shafi, he developed players like Sarfaraz Ahmed, he developed other players as well. I think every captain has likes and dislikes, and every captain has some personal, sort of thing. But I think Misbah kept that well in control. Overall, I think he did a very good job as a Pakistan captain and player. And finally, Abdullah, I think if I can take leave from you, because I need to get moving.
Sure.
Any final question?
Final question will be, how come Shoaib Malik's still around in the international circuit? In the last 6 ICC events, he's averaged under 20 in 5 of them. Like average under 20 in the 2019 World Cup, 2017 Champions Trophy, 2014 World T20, 2013 Champions Trophy, 2012 World T20. How come he's being persisted with on the basis of his seniority and experience when the performance is in front of you?
I think the main reason for that is, Abdullah, we have not developed players. We don't have consistency in developing our players. In the last 20 years, if we have not been able to develop players who can take the place of Shoaib Malik, that says a lot about our cricket. The players we picked were the wrong choices. we gave a lot of chances to Asif Ali, which was, I don't think it was fair at all. There were far better players in domestic cricket than him. We have not been able to develop players to replace these guys. If Shoaib Malik is playing today, it's because we don't like. If I ask you now that if we drop Shoaib Malik, who should we pick for the World T20? Uh,
Hussain Talat
at the
Asif,
end of the day, hmm?
Hussain Talat Asif Ali, go with youth. Kushner Shah.
Yeah, sure. Because Asif Ali has been given a lot of chances, and unfortunately, he has not. See, I think Abdullah, the key to selection is knowing, and I think Misbah also mentioned this in his interview. The key to knowing after a few matches, which player has a temperament to get runs in international cricket. That's what matters. No matter what he has done in domestic cricket, no matter what he has done elsewhere, that doesn't matter really. It's when he comes to play international cricket, that is when you have to have the eyes to make a quick decision after 2 or 3 matches that yes, this guy has the temperament. And once you decide that yes, this guy has the temperament to play international cricket, then you stick with him. Then you stick with him for a year. You stick with him for a year and a half to ensure that he settles in and he establishes himself. And generally, we have not done that with our players. And that is the reason why we have not been able to produce players to replace Shoaib Malik. And Malik, I think, in the last few years has managed to, luck. He's been very lucky also. And plus, he's managed to, what do you call it, mold himself into a very good T20 utility player. And when you talk about T20 cricket, that's how he has survived in the last few years mostly, by playing T20 cricket. That's what I feel. That if these guys are playing or surviving, if they are fit, they are playing, it's because we are not producing a replacement properly.